Call the meeting to order. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the city in which we live. Guide us this evening as we make our decisions. In Christ's name, amen. This is the regular meeting of the Newnan City Council, August the 27th, 2024. You have the minutes from the meeting on August 13th before you. I'll entertain a motion. We adopt those minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. We adopt the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. The next item under the boards and commission is our annual swearing in of the new members coming in to the Newnan Youth Council. And we are going to tag team that tonight, as we always do. Councilmember Jenkins is going to call the names, and I'm going to print out the certificates. And then Sears is going to swear you in. So, I hope you're all sitting. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we go.
So thank you all so much for coming for this. This is our newest group of students to come into the Youth Council. This group started in 2009. Legislation was passed in 2008 to create the Youth Activities Commission. So before we do this, I want to acknowledge the Youth Activities Commission members who are present. If you're on the YAC, as we call it, please raise your hand. We have several members in the audience. These are the people who are spending their time with your kid to teach them about government, to teach them about leadership, invest their time and energy into providing this wonderful opportunity. And of course, our staff liaison, who's been with them from the very beginning, Mike Furbish.
We have 5 o'clock this afternoon, the council and I had a meeting with the group, and they had, we had all our introductions for us, and then we had a bunch of questions they had written that we had to answer, and they were really tough questions, really well written and bright and to the point. So we appreciate all of your service and your willing to be part of this.
All right.
Ms. Jenkins.
Our 13 sophomores to join this year are Maddie Allen, 10th grader at Northgate. Please stand up and come up and shake your hands. All right. Ellie Bean, 10th grade, Newnan. Dominic Shepperton, 10th grade, Heritage. Maddie Ray Harris, 10th grade, Northgate.
Reach over, if that's okay.
Our Kadam, 10th grade, Woodward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I skipped one.
Yep. Okay, we're going back.
You're going back to it.
Okay.
Look up Mossy Ford. Jordan Jackson, 10th grade, East Coweta.
Here we go.
Sadie Keith, 10th grade, Newnan. Ansley Lane, 10th grade, East Coweta.
You just get one.
Catherine Ross Pass, 10th grade, Newnan.
And one here.
Kate Sears, 10th grade, Newnan.
Okay, I'll give you two.
Drake Strickland, 10th grade, Northgate.
Right. This guy had some great questions last week.
Cameron Stiles, 10th grade, Northgate. Annie Glenn Winstead, 10th grade, Newnan.
Now, if each one of you will stand up and raise your right hand for me. And don't worry, you're not gonna have to repeat, so this is not a learning situation. But I want to say, I do solemnly swear that I will support, uphold, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the laws thereof, that I will support and uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of the state of Georgia, not inconsistent therewith, that I will observe and obey the laws and ordinances of the city of Newnan, Georgia, that I will faithfully perform and discharge the duties incumbent upon me as a member of the Newnan Youth Council fairly and honestly and to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God. If you say I will, say I will. Mayor and council, I want to introduce to you the newest members of the City of Newnan Youth Council for the year 2024.
Thank you all again for being here. I believe they're going upstairs for their first meeting, or maybe not their first meeting, but for a meeting.
Pretty lonely now, boy. I'll get it swept.
As they file out, Ms. Jenkins will continue her duties by introducing the members of the Newnan Youth Council who are on the council, been on the council for a couple of years, and they are in attendance tonight. Ms. Jenkins?
Okay, we have with us this evening Jenna Moeller, Senior, Northgate. Annabeth Shelnutt, Senior, East Coweta. Alex Allen, Senior, Northgate. Helena Gibson, Senior, Northgate. Olivia Rodriguez, Junior, East Coweta. Braden Williamson, Junior, Newnan.
Okay, we've got some appointments to boards and commissions here this evening. The first one, I believe, we're going to put on the next agenda. Is that correct, Mr. Kirk?
Yes, sir, thank you.
That's the bicentennial committee. Ms. Jenkins, do you have Christmas?
No, I do not, either one of them.
Okay, all right, that makes it easy. And then, Mr. Critco, you have the next, Keep Newnan Beautiful.
I'd like to renominate Mr. Bill Boyd, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to second, we renominate Bill Boyd to the Keep Newnan Beautiful Commission. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carried, thank you. And the next, the Youth Activities Commission goes on to our next agenda. We appreciate those appointments. The next item on the agenda tonight, Mr. Phillips, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I do have one announcement. Normally this time of year, you see Norma Haynes come in front of you and invite you to the public safety luncheon. Ms. Norma called me yesterday and told me she wasn't going to be able to make it. I'm more than happy to fill in for Ms. Norma. But please mark your calendars. October the 3rd at the Quitty County Fairgrounds from 11:30 to 1 will be the public safety luncheon, and you are all invited to come down and serve in the line to help appreciate all the efforts of the public safety folks. I try to serve every year, so it's been a blessing to be able to do that. So I want to do that for Ms. Norma.
Thank you. We appreciate that announcement. If you'll send us all an email reminder, that'd be great too. Thank you. I don't have anything this evening under new business. The first is an appointment to the consideration of municipal court appointment to indigent defense attorney. The recommendation here is that we appoint Mr. Jim Strickland to this position. If there's any questions, Ms. Jada's here. Thank you for the recommendation. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. We appreciate it very much. The next item on the agenda tonight is a consideration of engineering services master agreement for Jefferson Street roundabout and intersection improvements. Mr. Clark, how are you this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is actually a two-part. The first one, as you said, was a consideration of an engineering service master's agreement. This is an agreement with Heath and Lineback, and for a term of 6 years. And the way we have set this up is that we will tuck in task orders underneath it for the various phases of the project. And you'll see task orders is coming up right after that one, but this is setting up the basic framework
Okay.
for the Jefferson Street roundabout project.
So he needs a motion for
Yes.
that? You need a motion for
Yes,
that?
please.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion, a second, to approve the engineering services master agreement. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. And then you're still up, as you mentioned, with consideration of task order number 1, scope and fees for the
Yes.
Jefferson Street roundabout intersection improvement.
Yes, sir. Task order number 1 will encompass the concept report. It will encompass the environmental documentation. It will encompass survey, preliminary engineering plans, and right-of-way plans. And got too many pages up here. And the amount that we negotiated with Heath and Lineback is for $1,674,717.02. The Atlanta Regional Commission and GDOT have given us $1,252,728.75. And we are responsible for 20% of that amount and the balance between the two, which is an additional $250,545.75 at the 20% split. I'm having trouble seeing.
That's all right. No problem. Okay, so you're looking for a motion to approve?
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. You got a question? That's timely. Go ahead.
I know that this is a conceptual drawing that's up there, but will the scope of work here include what to do with the old intersection?
Yes, it will.
Okay, because the drawing only shows the new stuff, so.
No, it will, and that'll be part of what we decide, we discuss, and there'll be a series of public information, open houses. We'll get feedback from everybody that's interested in the project. I imagine there'll be a number of them in that area that will express what their needs and wants are, and we'll try to accommodate that.
I'd like, just for the record, I've had some questions and some inquiries about this concept plan since it was actually in the Newnan Times-Herald. Could you give an update of where this concept plan came from, and it's not actually the design document?
That's correct. This is actually a result of our 2019 T-Splost projects, that old term T-Splost. And the county and the city had hired a consulting firm to help us make presentations to present for the T-Splost funding. What was it, a referendum or? And this would be what I would call an early concept. There's no survey, it's an idea. They drew some lines, dropped it in place to see how it would fit, just so we would be in a position to have a discussion with the ARC and GDOT on these. You're welcome.
Okay, appreciate that. So motion and second. Any other questions, comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you. The next, Ms. Meg, I believe you have introduction.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am pleased to introduce to you Mr. Greg Chapman. He is with Nichols, Colley & Associates, our auditing firm. Mr. Chapman is a certified public accountant, and he specializes in governmental auditing. Tonight, he's going to be presenting just kind of a brief overview of the audit of the 23 financial statement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Chapman.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I promise we'll keep it brief because.
Mr. Chapman, how are you?
Good.
Good.
As Meg mentioned, our firm has completed several months, several months by now, several months ago, the 2023 audit, and submitted that to the Georgia Department of Audits, and everything was submitted on time this year. This was our second year performing the audit for the city. We do appreciate the opportunity to serve City of Newnan and the citizens, and I'll just do a very brief overview of the audit. A little bit about our firm, as Meg mentioned, I do specialize in mostly working governmental audits. We currently serve about 75 governmental entities across the state. That's from counties as big as Cobb counties to very small South Georgia towns that don't even qualify for an audit but have to have a different procedures done. So we serve all types of governments, counties, cities, authorities, in health departments, and all various governmental entities. Our firm is about 240 team members currently, and we are spread across 8 offices across Georgia. I think we're missing one in that list, but 8 offices across Georgia. Our job as your auditor is to render opinion on the financial statements. The information, the numbers and such are provided by management. Our job as your auditor is to do our testing and procedures to render an opinion on the city's financial statements. Our audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted accounting or auditing standards and as well as governmental auditing standards. Our job is to provide reasonable assurance that the basic financial statements are free of material misstatements. And in doing our audit, we do consider the city's internal control structure, but we don't render an opinion on the internal control structure. Happy to report that we did render an unmodified opinion, which is accounting jargon for a clean opinion, which is what you're looking for. And that merely means that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with GAAP. A few required communications to you, the mayor and council, is that all of this information here is provided in a letter, but I'll briefly hit the highlights of that letter. The significant accounting policies are in note 1 of your financial statements. If you're looking for something to put you to sleep, read through note 1. That just goes through the descriptions of how the city accounts for various items. If you want to know how the city accounts for inventory, it'll describe those policies there. Accounting estimates, I always like to say that there's good solid hard numbers in an audit, and then there's some estimates. I can easily confirm the bank account balances with your banks, but certain numbers in your financials like pension valuations, fixed asset useful lives, we have to review those estimates and those inputs and determine whether we agree with those numbers. And we didn't have any problems with the estimates provided by management. Our job is also to review the financial disclosures to ensure they are in accordance with GAAP and everything is presented concisely. No problems with those. We did receive full cooperation from the city's management and staff. Rhonda and her team was very helpful in getting us what we needed. That all contributes to us getting the audit completed timely. Actually, the most important part of us getting it completed timely is getting the information from the city. But no disagreements with the city, and everybody was very helpful as we worked on the audit. Audit adjustments, from time to time there's audit adjustments recorded, and a lot of that has to do with the timing of the financial statements. A lot of those are based on actuarial valuations that come in afterwards, and we do provide a copy of those to management. Past audit adjustments would include any adjustments that we identified during our audit, presented to management, and they said, no, we don't want to book that. If it was a material number, I would be required to present that to you. However, there were none of such adjustments proposed or passed by management. As a part of our audit, we do receive representations from management. Auditing standards require us to provide management with a letter that they review and sign, but ultimately, if I had to boil it down, says, we gave you what you asked for and we told you the truth. So they did provide that to us, and it is attached to that letter, that required communications letter. Independence. We do have to, as your auditor, be independent in regards to the city. For one, I can't sit on the city council and then do the audit. But there are also other things that could affect independence as far as fees paid to us for services rendered that would impair our independence. If we were to tell the city how to account for something and then audit that same information, we would be impaired on our independence. So there are certain procedures we can't do as an auditor, but I'm happy to say that we're not engaged and did not perform any such services during 2023, and we were indeed independent. Just a few financial trends. We're looking in the rearview mirror now. These numbers are now about 9 months in the rearview mirror, but just to look at the year in, the last 4 fiscal years. And that silver line on the top is your local option sales tax, and the bottom line is your property taxes. So what you're looking to see is that nice stable, you don't want to see a lot of peaks and valleys, so nice stable lines there. Your property taxes remain relatively constant, and the sales taxes have been increasing, probably a lot to do with the increase in prices, which is driving those sales taxes. But healthy trend lines on your revenues. Looking at your general fund expenditures, which shouldn't be a surprise that you spend the majority of your general fund dollars on public safety, as do most other city and county governments, spend about half, somewhere between 40 and 50% on public safety. 31% on general government. That's everything from administration to purchasing to finance to all those various general government departments. Public Works makes up 11%, and the community development is the final 15%. Looking at your general fund balance over the past 4 years, we do see a little dip down there. No surprise, that's attributable to the tornado. Y'all outlaid a lot of money up front pending FEMA to reimburse you for that. So you see that line dip, that fund balance dip down as you spent those dollars. And then as they were refunded or reimbursed by FEMA, that line come back up, and nice solid flat line for the last 2 years. Just to highlight some of the capital investments the city made during '23, about $6 million was invested in public safety, parks and rec, and public works equipment and infrastructure. The other funds, whether that be general, ARPA, any of the other city funds, about $6.5 million in addition was invested in infrastructure, equipment, and vehicles. And I promised to keep it short, so that was all I had to say regarding the audit, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chapman, any questions from anyone for Mr. Chapman? We thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate the clean report. Thank you. The next item on the agenda this evening, under unfinished business, this is a public hearing. This is a zoning ordinance text amendment, Article 11, revising certain language and sections as they pertain to changes in standards of granting variances. Mr. Smith, how are you, sir?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. You may recall earlier in the summer, Ms. Donovan brought this language to you all. I think part of it resulted from the training session you had had earlier, where we discovered that what we thought had been changed in terms of what has to be met in order to be considered for a variance had not been changed. So we went back, we looked at the ordinance. We also started taking a look not only at changing the language instead of taking it to meet all the standards to most, but we also began to look at maybe how we can augment this particular section. So what you have before you is the result of that effort. It did go to the Planning Commission July the 9th. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the language you have before you this evening. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Council questions? Yes, ma'am.
We talked about this a few times, but I didn't ask the question, will any of these changes have an effect on organizations like our Housing Authority and Habitat for Humanity, who are building homes that require variances to meet their goals?
Housing Authority is a government entity, quasi-government entity, so they're exempt from the zoning ordinance. Habitat, there are some administrative variance options where we can reduce certain things like building setbacks and heated square footages by certain percentages without having to go through these particular standards. These standards apply to those types of variances that would need a public hearing. So it depends on what extent that they would need. Each is a case-by-case basis. But would it impact, would this be to the detriment of those requests? No. What it does, I think, is it does force the applicant to think a little bit beyond just this particular project. Because one of the things we added was the impact of this variance to the community at large. Will it increase traffic? If I have, if I can pack more houses on a lot because I can get reduced setbacks, how would that impact my neighbors? How would that impact the roads? So that gives us more to think about, but not necessarily, it won't mean they would be automatically voted down as opposed to what we have now. Which would mean currently what we have is you have to meet all the standards, which is next to impossible. And we currently do have, just as a side note, about 5 cases pending the actions of this board.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a quick question. Talking about the verbiage here, in that first paragraph, in yellow, third line that's highlighted, the last couple words of that sentence, and substantial justice done. What are we referring to there? What is that?
Substantial justice would mean that it's done for the good of the community and for the good of the city and the ordinances. That we're not violating any ordinances of the city, that we're in the interest of communities and the welfare of the city.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, let me back up. I want to ask for a motion. I'm going to remind the people who are here today that this is a public hearing, and this is your opportunity to come forward to speak to this issue, which is Article 11, revising certain language and section as they pertain to changes in standards of granting variances. So if you came here tonight to speak to that issue, this is your opportunity. Seeing no one move, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and now ask for a motion on the ordinance.
Motion to approve ordinance changes.
Second.
Don't we need the recommendation from the plan?
You're having a conversation about the report
Mr.
from
Sears
the
was
planning
asking if we
commission?
needed to adopt the recommendation from the planning commission, but I believe we only adopt the recommendation from the planning commission on the rezoning. I don't know if we recall us doing it on a text amendment.
Well, it was referred to council.
It doesn't matter, I mean, if you want to, we can certainly.
That's normally what y'all been doing.
Okay, well, I've got a motion, a second, to adopt the ordinance. I'm going to call that question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And now, if I could get a motion to adopt the report recommendation from the planning commission.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And now we're gonna need to put this item on our agenda for 2 weeks from now. I'll bring everyone to the attention to the fact we're having to vote on this twice. We're having that coming up in the next couple of weeks, and this is delaying all of these folks who have been asking for a variance for 2 more weeks. But that's what we got right now. Under visitors tonight, we have a request from the Historical Society renew lease at 27 Clark. I believe you've got that information before you. I believe Ms. Scott's here. If she would like to speak to that issue, this is your opportunity to do so. How are you, Ms. Scott?
I'm fine, thank you. If it's okay, I would like to just leave my presentation on this welcome screen here until we get to the photographs, because it's just my talking points. So, anyway, I am from the Newnan History Center, and my name is Larissa Scott. I'm executive director there, a position I've had for about 1.5 years. And joining me tonight is the president of our board, Mr. Harry Camp. And we also have Dr. Mark Jansen, who is head of museum studies at the University of West Georgia, and our secretary. And then we also have Miss Jenny Enderlin, who has been on our board for a while. And so I appreciate them coming tonight too. And we are here at the suggestion of City Manager Cletus Phillips to come and discuss 27 Clark Street and how we use that building and exciting plans for what we want to do with it in the future. And we first want to express our sincere gratitude to the city for their partnership and assistance over the last 55 years of our organization. We operate the McRitchie Hollis Museum and the Historic Train Depot, and our extensive local history archives and collections are in the Clark Street building next to us. We have 3 full-time employees, myself, a museum manager, and a collections manager. And together, we take care of some 8,000 items that are cataloged in our, in our collections building. So the museum is located near downtown at 74 Jackson Street. Initially a furnishings museum, is now an interactive local history museum that tells the story of Newnan and Coweta County. And while the city owns the House Museum, it is maintained, and we try to be very good stewards of the History Center of the museum, and at no taxpayer expense. The collections building, also owned by the city, is partially maintained by us and also the city. The McRitchie-Haas Museum and Collections Building go hand in hand in that the operations and health of both depend on one another. The Collections Building is not storage. It is a meticulously maintained repository and archive of all things Newnan and Coweta, dating back to Native Americans and our first settlers. In an ideal world, the two buildings would be right up next to each other. And in fact, we are in and out of both buildings all day long. Post-COVID, the McRitchie-Hollis Museum is enjoying an upswing in museum membership, visitors, online engagement, and attendance at both our programs and events. Phase one of turning the museum into an exhibit spot is complete, and phase two is 75% complete. We project that it'll be finished mid-October. Visitors react positively to the new local history exhibits, and there's been a steady climb in museum visits and tours. In 2023, we had 4,242 visitors, and in 2024, so far, we've had 2,298 visitors, but we haven't gotten to our really busy fall season yet. The success of the museum that Mr. Hollis left his estate to is finally getting much-needed attraction and community engagement. We could not have done it without the museum's accompanying collections and our ability to work in and out of that building. So, what we would like to do is have an opportunity beyond the few minutes that we have tonight to educate the mayor and the council on what goes on at 27 Clark Street and what else we would like to go on at 27 Clark Street. And we would like you all to come for a tour of the collections building and the museum at your earliest convenience. And we are actively increasing public access by opening up the main room and the research room, which has always been open by request. In the coming months, we have the Sports Hall of Fame board meeting. We have the Tornado Project folks coming to record their accounts of the tornado that happened here. We've got lecture series being planned and behind-the-scenes tours and, of course, ongoing research. This is a plan that we've put together based on feedback from Mr. Phillips that the city would like to see the building have more public use and engagement. With the upcoming bicentennial celebration being planned, our collections and archives are more important than ever, and we want them to be safe and where they're supposed to be. So we thank you for this opportunity to express our gratitude and to talk about future plans. And we see the museum and the collections building as a community asset together that belongs to our citizens. It's not the history centers or the historical societies. It belongs to the people, and we want to be good stewards of that. And so with that, what I'd like to do is show photographs of 27 Clark Street, starting with the outside. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought somebody else was doing it. Is it this right here? Okay. All right. Sorry. Oh, Lord. I gotta get to the, okay, there we go. Okay. So this is the exterior of 27 Clark. And we have been working to get new window treatments put in that look more welcoming, patio furniture, signage explaining that it's collections, archives, and research. This is the main room inside, like when you first come in the collections building, this is what you see. We have lots of documents and just, all kind of items related to Newnan and Coweta history that you can imagine in there. One of them is the 1930s phone booth from the old Newnan Hospital. This is one of our interns who has a master's degree in museum studies. And she is cataloging one of our local citizens who passed away not too long ago, Mr. David Boyd. She is cataloging his things and getting them ready for an exhibit that will be placed in the museum coming up soon. So we very much use this space as working space. If we did not have the space to work in, I don't know where we would do all of this, because we can't do it where people are coming in and out of the museum. These are the other two staff members working with some of our collections and archives. And you can see in almost every picture behind them are cataloged and tagged items. We have lots of flat files that have everything from land lottery maps to just, all kind of important documents. We have all of the tax books dating back to the early 1900s. We have clothing dating back to the Civil War. We have Civil War swords and weapons, bayonets, guns. And we have one office over there. With the aid of having the collections building, we were able to put together our new exhibit. So this is over at the museum. You can see the difference in the two places. So this is Newnan as a Civil War hospital town and just Newnan as a hospital town, period, exhibit. And then this is the Artie Cole exhibit. On the left is an exhibit about prominent women in our community, and some of you may, I don't know if you can see it or not, but Miss Jenkins's picture is up there on the wall. And then this is a children's exhibit, an exhibit dedicated to Edgar Hollis, who's our benefactor. And that was all I had, and I just thank you for allowing us this opportunity to tell you how important 27 Clark Street is to our operations. And I'm available if anybody has any questions,
Questions of Ms. Scott?
or for anyone on our board.
I have a comment question. Larissa, thank you. Larissa and I talked earlier today, and I really appreciate you sharing all that you did about the property. And I know this is about a lease extension or lease renewal request. Do you see, I mean, this just helped me kind of, in my mind, think about how the future, 10 years, 5 years, 15 years from now, is that building going to be adequate? Is that really the right building for a collections building? Or would we look at something, more typical to other museums? What are y'all thinking there?
So you're saying 5, 10 years from now, would it still be adequate? Okay, so we use a lot of the space. We've cleared a lot of space in that we've been able to take a lot of what was there and put it in the actual museum. There's more of that we could do to make more space in that main room. But in terms of, way down the line, being able to accept major, huge donations of let's say someone who had an extensive Civil War collection passed away and gave it to us. We would have to really manage the space to get that all to fit, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? And we appreciate you being here tonight.
Sure.
We're in a tough position here. Y'all need space, and you're in our building, and we need space, and you're in our building. We are built out at City Hall, totally people on top of each other. We do not have another nook or cranny that we can revitalize, put a wall up, knock a wall down. We've built out the basement. We've redesigned upstairs. We've redesigned the city manager's area. This past year, we redesigned to accommodate more space, to capture more space, the accounting department. So we're done here. We recently had to have a space for the sanitation department. We actually had to buy a building, the old BB&T building in downtown Newnan. We had to buy that in order to move them out of Wadsworth in an area where the public couldn't get to them. We've got other departments right now that the public needs to access, and they don't have space that is easily accessible by the public. So we're both in the same dilemma, and we have an opportunity here to recapture a building that we think is higher and better used for the public's, and I understand what you said a while ago, the public accesses your building, I get that. But we believe, or at least I believe, everybody else can speak for themselves, that building is better suited for the use of city offices than it is that the use that it has right now. So,
I have some questions.
other people have other comments, I'm sure.
I have a question, because, I hadn't necessarily heard that we were looking at that space in particular for staff needs. So can you explain to Mr. Phillips?
Well, I think,
where we are there?
I'm not going to say we've been looking at that particular space. I think what the mayor said is absolutely true. We have space needs. I mean, I have leisure services that are not in a publicly accessible location. We've added fire inspectors to the program that don't even have offices in that particular location. And so we are just simply stretched. Have we done an analysis to determine what would be the best fit from our services in that building? No, we have not. I will say one thing, and this conversation about the utilization of this particular building is not a new conversation. I know Larissa's been there a year and a half, but the conversations about the building as a storage facility has been going back for many, many years. While it has been used as a storage facility, they can certainly attest that we struggle. We've got it under a little bit better control with the humidity levels in a storage facility. The city has made a lot of investment in the new HVACs and the air control to try to control the humidity levels that would be appropriate in a storage facility. There was one point in time before the city spent quite a bit of money that we were having some mold on some of the storage products. So while it has served that purpose, let's be honest, it was built as a house, and then it was used as an administrative office for the hospital for years. It has humidity issues, and we still work on it from time to time. Our crew tries to do the best they can. So it's been a challenge for my maintenance crews, I will say that.
I haven't missed anything. I thought, we're talking about this particular building being used for city staff, and that's a leap we haven't made just yet. So then, how soon are you trying to build out something for our staff members?
I don't know if that's a question that I'm capable of answering tonight. I mean, obviously, they're in the building, they're functioning out of the building. I think if this body were to make a decision to not renew the lease, I mean, you certainly got to give them ample time to get out of the building. Their lease, they're in their 10th year of the lease. The lease expires at the end of this year, December 31st.
So it is a tough position. We've got a building, we've got needs, not necessarily associated with that building, but needs where it could be an option. And they have a lot of things that will take some time and some effort to relocate, and some research, frankly, to figure out what that solution is going to be. Meanwhile, we have a bicentennial coming up. And some of the things they have in their collections are things that we're gonna need. I mean, to properly celebrate our bicentennial. So I would say that we, at the very least, get past our bicentennial before asking them to figure out where to go. Or use that time leading up to the bicentennial to figure out what that looks like. That's what, 3 years from now, or December 20th, the thing you said, saying December 20th, 2028 is our bicentennial?
It's today.
Officially. I think that,
Yeah, there are all kind of museum standards about, you cannot just go in there and start throwing things in a box, like when you're moving apartments or something like that. There's a huge process that goes along with it that's very time-consuming and expensive. The amount of staff hours, we would probably not be able to do much else other than work on getting moved. So the momentum that we're feeling as a museum may take a hit during that time, certainly, but I would look at it as a 2-year process, just to get everything, find location, be able to properly pack things up and get them to a new place.
Did you say 2 years?
Could I ask a question? As we're mulling through it, Mr. Phillips has discussed that the humidity problems and stuff like that. From a conservation aspect, is that building and the humidity and those issues that are going on, whatever else issues might be there, how is that for the long-term preservation of the collection? And how is that affecting that in the 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? I mean,
So-
a lot of the stuff is, papers, clothing are very sensitive to those kind of things.
Correct. So my understanding in that the big problem with the humidity happened before I got there, a few years before I got there. And it was caught before any damage was done to anything. And the city came in and stabilized the system that we had there and got it, and we monitor it. We are not having any issues right now. Everything is fine. We are handling our collections daily, and we're not seeing any signs of humidity in there right now. The system is doing its job very well.
So kind of a follow-on question then is, looking at your photos, you're pretty full.
Getting there.
And, getting there, it looks like pretty quick. And if you're expecting more donations and more, especially with events going on and 200, our bicentennial and that kind of stuff and other things to add to the collection, it looks like you're pretty much almost busting the seams already. I mean, you're going to be growing out of that building. So it looks like long-term, you need to be finding something anyway. Have you even looked at that, kind of like
There's
long-term?
always more organization that could be done in digitization to help space. We have moved a lot of things into the museum, and we're still working on that. All the exhibits are not finished, so even more will be going into the exhibits in the main museum. And exhibits rotate, so things don't stay out forever. Museums you can tell if you ever visit a museum, one that never changes anything out. Everything looks really stale and boring. So we do change out exhibits every 6 to 12 months. We do reassess things from time to time and decide it's not for the collection. That happens occasionally. So there's a lot of things moving in and out and being used at different times. And right now, and I think y'all see, if you could come over and look, we have really, that main big room has a lot of flexibility and space in it right now.
I just,
That was the point Mr. Thompson was making.
Yeah.
They're busting the seams now. They
Well-
can't take any more. And for their future planning and for our future planning, another location is probably your best option. It's not to stay in that building and not be able to take on, even though you said, someone who would pass away and bequeath a large gift. Where would you put
We
it?
would have to make room for it.
That's right.
Right.
So,
And
I was gonna ask,
Another-
I've never been in that building. I would ask, we maybe table this to the next meeting and see if we could get over there and just take a look at it, I would like to see that, just see how it looks. And if it-
so just, in my opinion, we're not busting at the seams. We have a lot of items that are cataloged and organized. we are continually moving things back and forth between the two buildings. The big main room has a lot of more space and flexibility to it. I think if we ever got into a space issue, it really would be way down the line. And again, I invite you all to please come over and take a look and see for yourself.
Mr. Mayor? I know, and we talked today, and again, I appreciate you calling, that the amount of speaking you were going to have to do tonight was more than you had anticipated. And so I want to just I'm kind of destined, I feel like I'd like to give y'all time to think about what you've heard here tonight. And come back with a lease proposal. And personally, I like to see a shifting of this humidity, the air conditioning, those expenses to be on you, similar to the 74. That's just for me. But and then we can also think about what our space plan might be as well, since it's, then we all come back together and figure out how the best way to move forward. I mean,
Right.
I'm not prepared to make a decision tonight. I think I would short sell you if I maybe made a decision tonight.
Right. I mean, I can just say, forget about me being the director of the History Center. I love the History Center. I love the city of Newnan. I want what's best for the community, and I really feel like going in there and trying to slap all the, 200-year-old artifacts and collections into storage boxes and taking them on trucks to, hastily to another location would not be good for this community.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we're at
That's
the
good.
end of the discussion. I think that unless there's someone else that wants to take action on this tonight, I think the consensus of the council is for me to instruct staff to put this on our next agenda. If that's all right with everyone, without taking any action on the item itself. And we'll see what happens during the next two-week period. We appreciate you being here
Okay,
tonight.
thank you all.
Okay, that ends our regular agenda, but we do need a legal executive session. I'm going to ask Ms. Jenkins to make the motion to take us into executive session. I'm also going to make the announcement that myself and Mr. DeBose are not going to attend the executive session due to a business conflict.
I move that we now enter into closed session as allowed by Official Code of Georgia 50-14-4, and pursuant to advice by the city attorney for the purpose of discussing legal, and that we in open session adopt a resolution authorizing the director and mayor or presiding officer to execute an affidavit in compliance with Official Code of Georgia 50-14-4, and that this body ratify the actions taken in closed session and confirm that the subject matters of the closed session were within exceptions permitted by the open meetings law.
Second.